evening. I hope everybody is doing well, and I hope you're ready to think about a few things because I got a few things that I want to talk about today. And yeah, they're surrounding two things we really don't like because they kind of stress us out. But the first one is COVID, and the second one is Trump. And we're going to run them together because right now, I'm getting confused and I'm seeing blurs. And so I want to welcome you to my show this evening, again this morning or this afternoon, wherever time zone you're in, that you're enjoying it. I hope that you stay and listen to what I got to say. And let me just start off by saying I am on KCBZ radio, and this is my ninth show. So, unless my producer tells me differently, I think this is my ninth show. And I just want to pat myself on the back and say congratulations because, yeah, whole lot of trepidation. So, that brings me to my quote this week. Comes from the German proverb, fear makes the wolf bigger than he is. Now, as I said, it's the ninth show, everybody. Woohoo! And I can attest to the truth of that statement. Fear does make the wolf bigger. Um, I've been afraid for a minute. My producer will tell you that it's been about 2 years since I've been afraid. So yeah, I'm here now, and I still have I guess what is it called? Worms and bugs and apprehensions and all of that. I still have all of that. And the one thing that I've learned though through the process of the last few weeks is that it's not the fear that we have to it's not the fear, the wolf that I have to be afraid of, because the wolves get larger. You see, every time you take a step forward, you're doing something new. You're going on to a new journey. So the first 10 shows will be out the way next week. If my calculations are correct, they'll be out the way next week. And then I'll be going on to the 11th show and then possibly getting people to call in and to talk. And so that's a new challenge. And it's something more for me to be afraid of. However, as long as I don't allow that fear to paralyze me, it's completely normal. It's normal to be afraid. It's not normal to be paralyzed by it. So let's keep moving. Whatever you're doing in your life, however you're progressing forward, keep moving. If you look at that wolf in the face and say, I ain't afraid of you, wolf, and just keep on going, then that's what works for you. So we got to stay that way in that mindset. And I'm saying we, because although I'm referring to myself with this program, I'm talking to you as well with whatever you have going on in your life, whatever wolves you have going on. And it's a new time. So we're going to be having to do new things, trying new avenues and new areas. And as we've all heard that famous quote, nothing beats a failure but failing to try. So we want to make sure that whatever we, you, and me, whatever we're doing with the utmost confidence. We pay it the deepest respect by giving it our all so that we can have a modicum of success. Now, having said that, ladies and gentlemen, let me get into what is really going down. Listen to this. Americans are dying. That's true. That's true. But it is what it is. Donald Trump said that. Donald Trump is your president. He said that to the Americans. Now, to my European and my Asian and my other areas, international audience, not necessarily your president. But those of us who live in America, this is our president. And this man just said, Americans are dying, that's true, but it is what it is. He said a few more things after that, but he had me stumped that it is what it is. What do you mean it is what it is? How is it that Americans dying from COVID it is what it is? How does that even ring true? So now let's talk about what's going on. Last night, HBO aired a special on an interview between Jonathan Swan and the Axos, who is an Axos magazine, I guess Axos journalist, right? So he's a journalist for Axos, and he had an interview with Donald Trump. And the questions that Swan did, he did a great job of probing and trying to pin Trump down to specific answers. But Trump danced his jig and did what his verbal jig, his mental lapse jig. He did that thing and basically hemmed and hawed his way through responses, but also offering a lot of red herrings, if you will. So he was just, if Swan asked one question, Trump would go in a different direction. And so every time Swan tried to pull him back, Trump pushed further out. It's actually a great interview in terms of giving you insight into just who the president is and just what his mindset is like, right? It's actually, for those people who are into politics and who follow Trump, they'll see that it's more of the same. And in that case, it is what it is. But is it? Is it really what it is, right? Trump exaggerates, he prevaricates, he stretches and reaches and twists and turns every element of truth to fit his narrative, to fit his truth. It is, as I've said before, that old children's tale. I think that's from Germany as well. But the emperor has on, or the emperor's new clothes, right? And so every day, you guys remember this, that the emperor would go outside and he'd go outside naked and he'd ask the people, how do you like my new clothes? How do you like my new clothes? And every day the people would grumble amongst themselves, but they'd say to the emperor, hey, those clothes look great. Those clothes look great. Till finally someone had the courage to tell the emperor, look, bro, you're not wearing any clothes, right? And that caused the emperor to change his mind. I think, I'm not going to say that there aren't enough people around Trump that aren't telling him he isn't wearing any clothes, but there are quite a few who are letting him get away with not wearing the clothes or without speaking the truth. Now, that could be because they're young staffers and they are building their, resume or their vitae, curricula vitae, whatever they want to call it. They're building it, so they need that experience. But they aren't really speaking truth to power. So Trump is getting away with too many things. So in this way, while Swan did a great job, it is still much of the same. We're still looking at Trump and shaking our head like, oh my gosh, is this really going on? Am I really seeing this? Is this really happening? And so, yeah, ladies and gentlemen, yeah. When Trump says, it is what it is, he dismisses the coronavirus, right? Because when we look at the phrase, it is what it is, it's actually a dismissive term. What the speaker is saying is that he or she acquiesces or they accept whatever the state or the condition is. And it's usually when you have a challenge or when you have some kind of issue that can't be resolved or that you're struggling to resolve. When you throw your hands up, you kind of are saying, oh, well, it is what it is. And so you're moving forward from that perspective. The problem is that when you say it, it's probably about something that is relevant in your personal life that is going to have an impact on you. When the president says it is what it is, with respect to the coronavirus, he is not saying it to because the challenge is undermining him. Oh, wait, let me think about that. Maybe he is saying it for that reason, because you see, the coronavirus is a challenge, and the coronavirus pretty much, if Joe Biden doesn't mess up, now let's just call a duck, If Joe Biden doesn't mess up in the next, 90 days, if he doesn't mess up, then he pretty much should get a shoe in for the next president of the United States. However, and we'll talk about that in a minute. However, Donald Trump has been done in because of the coronavirus, amongst other things. So the coronavirus, racism, blatant racism, his blatant disregard and disrespect for all minorities. China flu. Do I have to say anything else? I don't even know what to say. I'm stumped, perplexed. And I'm as perplexed as the interviewer, because I sat there confused and saddened that this man represents the United States of America, and that we are, if we do not act soon, we will be complicit in his presidency, right? Even if we don't vote for him, even if we don't vote, when the collective votes, and it's always been this way in past elections, when the majority speaks, he won the vote. The popular vote was won by Clinton, but he won the overall vote. All right. So now when the population speaks, we generally accept the president because he becomes the president of the United States. And whether we like it or not, he still is representing our country and the best of who we are. That's ideally been the case. That's probably even truthfully been the case for many presidents. Certainly the 44 represented the best of who we are as Americans. He represented all that was good. And this is not to put more on him, right? But it's to put more on him. 44 did the doggone thing. And now we are stuck with Trump. But we're stuck with Trump for a couple of reasons. The first one is Trump spoke to the needs of people who heard him, right? I always say he won on attack, anger, and avoidance, right? And maybe I said that backwards, but avoidance, attack, and anger. So the first thing, avoidance, he avoided all of the rules. We never knew what Trump's platform was, what his agenda was. We didn't know what his plan for Medicare or Medi-Cal was, other than he was going to revamp Obamacare. We knew that Clinton was a liar, crooked Hillary, and he was going to put her in prison. But when it came to the what he was going to do about the economy, what he was going to do about jobs, it wasn't until the 11th hour that he started producing, right? And it actually was when he went down to, I want to say Virginia, but I'm not sure what state it is. But when he saved the Hoover, and he stopped those jobs from going overseas, and he left them here. So Trump is a businessman's president because he speaks to the needs of the business class. And he, I don't want to say revamped or took away NAFTA and some of those other programs that were in place to help these other countries. Trump made it harder on them by taxing them more and then penalizing companies who leave the United States to build their business operations outside of this country. So in that way, he brought jobs back, or he's bringing jobs back, or he maybe even in the first 2 or 3 years was restoring the economy. But since then, it's gone down. Now, back to it is what it is. So, it is what it is. This phrase is succinct and dismissive. It suggests that the speaker is at once accepting the situation and equally and as casually doesn't, right? So he is accepting the situation, and at the same time, he's not. He doesn't even want to own it. He doesn't care. In essence, what the phrase "it is what it is," right, means Shit happens. Ooh, excuse me, audience, if I offended you with my language, my colorful language, but it is what it is. It's basically like, oh well, things happen. Oh well, it happens. So you are basically saying to whomever you're speaking to, even if it's yourself, that you really don't give a damn. You don't care anymore because it happened. It is what it is, and that's what it is. Now, that can be true of spilled milk. It can be true of even a Diet Coke, which Trump is fond of, but not when you have lives of millions of Americans in your hands and they are depending on leadership and guidance that they can trust and they can follow. That is the role of the President of the United States, right? You want somebody that you can follow. And maybe what Trump has are these white folks. Not all white folks, because there's some good, logical thinking white folks who are realistic and practical and understand that the country is going in a different direction. But remember that Trump did win. And I don't care how volatile Trump is, how ass backwards he is. I don't care about any of that, because it's not Trump that becomes the problem. It's the people who vote for him who have the problem. Because when you vote for someone who is so bombastic, when you support somebody who is clearly a as what's his name? Oh gosh, I can't. Tillerson called him, right, an idiot. When you have this, when you clearly have this, and people are supporting you, then it suggests that there's something wrong with the people who are supporting you and not necessarily you. As my grandfather used to tell me all the time, baby, if you argue with a fool and you know he's a fool, who's the fool? You or him? That makes a lot of sense. Me, I would be the fool if I argued with the fool. So we voted in Trump. He's making us look foolish. If we vote him again in 90 days, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? We're going to be even bigger fools, because he's pulling the wool over our eyes and we're letting him, right? So you gotta be careful, gotta be smarter than the average bear, gotta be smarter than the average bear. Now, let's talk about this, because I can hear you guys saying, oh, Kelly, don't think that way. That's just horrible. You're right. It is. But it is what it is, right? Sometimes the truth hurts. As we've been hearing over the last few weeks, we've got to be willing to have the uncomfortable conversations. And that means even for people who support Trump, it's time to take off the blinders, right? You're running like a horse with blinders on, so that you can't see anything but straight ahead. And the problem with that logic and that thinking is, while it may work for the horse because the horse is running a race, what are you running for? Who's supporting you? How is he holding your hand? Some of you voted for Trump, and Trump just told you it is what it is. Rest in peace, Herman Cain. He voted for Trump, but instead of Trump advocating wearing masks, and instead of Trump promoting social distancing at that speech in Oklahoma, people were gathered closely and huddled closely. And while Herman Cain's family may say that he's done additional traveling since then, come on. He's visibly at this event. And then 10 days later to the date, he is placed in the hospital. I'm not saying he caught it from the event. I'm just saying there's some connections that we probably should make, right? There are some dots that we probably could actually connect if we thought about it. But see, Cain supported Trump. Now, Trump just said people are going to die. It is what it is. I don't think I could be Herman Cain's daughter and accept that as a truth, right? I'm more like the lady in Texas who wrote the letter and blamed it on her Republican governor and the president, the fact that her husband died. That had they been willing to enforce the rules, willing to enforce mask wearing, willing to call people on their stuff, that guess what? Her husband and several other people would still be alive. So you got to be willing to stand up and look at the facts, ladies and gentlemen. You got to be willing to acknowledge that children wouldn't be dying, because that seems to be the next group that this virus is targeting. We've already lost 2 more teens this week. So these are things that we have to think about. And so, yeah, I mean, really, because we've elected a rich, bumbling idiot. That was my poor attempt at a Jamaican accent, because I love Jamaican culture. So I'll say it in English, like standard English, right? He's a rich, bumbling idiot. A rich, bumbling idiot who speaks to racist businessmen and who also spoke or speaks to the unemployed who are walking around and searching for hopefulness in a hopelessness situation. Now that sounds kind of ironic considering that 44 voted on the audacity of hope. But there are people in the middle part of the country, there are people in southern states, there are people right here in California who are hurting. And when people are hurting and when things get desperate enough, they'll do just about anything to ease the pain, even if it means voting for someone that sounds good. You sound like what I should be supporting. You sound like what works for me. Let us not forget that in 2016, after Trump won, the first thing that they asked the people, these were reporters out there asking the people, well, what is it that Trump is going to do that you really want him to do? They wanted him to get rid of Obamacare. Get rid of Obamacare? Really? So the man said, one of the interviewers, and I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I'm using my mental Rolodex to recall this event, but the reporter asked her, so what do you think you'll have in place if Trump gets rid of Obamacare? And she said, well, I'll have the Affordable Care Act. That's how I'll have insurance, under the Affordable Care Act. So immediately the reporter said, ma'am, Obamacare is the Affordable Care Act. And she said, no, it's not. No, it's not. And she was adamant about it. But yes, it is. And the problem is that when people are uninformed, when they don't have any kind of, I want to say inclination, but any kind of like maybe political instincts or political knowledge, when they don't understand the laws that are in front of them or what the policies that have been put in place to benefit them are, then naturally anybody who is waving a flag that is saying Obama wasn't born in the United States, the birther movement, anybody who is saying that Obama was incompetent because he's Black, whether they said it directly or inferred it, or you could imply it based on what they said. Guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Those people are going to follow whomever speaks to them. They're going to follow whoever says what they want to hear. Now, a part of that is because they just are maybe ill-educated or uneducated or poorly educated. Maybe there's just there could be a willful ignorance. I'm going to ignore the facts. I'm going to ignore that he just said that, and I'm going to pay attention to what I believe. I'm going to pay attention to what I know to be true. But in reality, just like the New Deal from FDR benefited the majority of white Americans who were impoverished during that time period, the Affordable Care Act has impacted the lives, has helped the lives of millions of Americans who are beneath, below, or beyond the poverty line, right? This act has been beneficial to several of those people who happen not to be African American or other minorities. It also has benefited people who have disabilities, people who have co-occurring disorders, or people who have chronic illness and are unable to purchase healthcare, and were unable to purchase healthcare prior to that because of these ailments. And so here comes this Affordable Care Act, which is not the ideal, but it's a beginning, right? We went from having no health care for many Americans to a halfway decent universal health care plan. Now, does it have its issues? Yeah, but that's a different show. This show is not going to look at those issues. Sorry, not today. What we instead are going to look at is how Trump is taking language and masterfully twisting it to fit his agenda. i.e., within the last 7 days, he has suggested that we move the voting date or that the vote be postponed. Immediately, everyone from Mitch McConnell to Nancy Pelosi to the four previous presidents had something to say about that. That has never been done. That is impossible. But what we understand and what they understand is that Trump is trying to delay or postpone his inevitable demise. Because I guarantee you, ladies and gentlemen, he is not trying to leave. He does not want to leave. And we have to make sure that we stand up to him and stand up to that. Because if we don't, it's going to come back and bite us. We're getting ready to go on a break. When we come back from the break, we'll have our COVID numbers, because I didn't do that yet. And we're going to finish this conversation. And if I have time, I'm going to do my police report for this week. And yeah, we're going to chin check Aurora, Colorado, because they're foul and this is so wrong. So please come back in a few short seconds after we do like a pay the bills break. And we'll be right back here on Kelz Key, Provocative Thoughts for a Provoked Mind on KCBZ Radio. All right, ladies and gentlemen. And I want to thank you again for joining me this evening and for sticking around. I appreciate you, and I appreciate this conversation. Thanks.
Diaspora Beauty Supply. Diaspora Beauty Supply is an African-American owned beauty supply dedicated to customers' wants and needs, offering a large variety of crochet braids, human weaving hair, synthetic blends, stylish wigs, natural styling products, and an exclusive line of virgin hair extensions. We support them. We encourage you to check them out. To contact them, call 562-612-5487. That's 562-612-5487. You can also find them on all social media sites. Google DIASPORA Beauty Supply, Diaspora Beauty Supply. We support them. We encourage them to continue to do what they're doing. Keep it locked here on KCBZradio.com.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of the coronavirus. Wash your hands. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Cover your cough or sneeze. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects. And remember, you're safer at home. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19.
Hi, welcome back. This is your girl Kelz at Kelz Key, Provocative Thoughts from a Provoked Mind, on KCBZ Radio. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get into it. So let me give you the COVID numbers for this week because I didn't do that at the outset. Uh, Today, effective today, August 4th, the United States currently has 4,698,818 infected cases. Of those 4,155,204 have died. Per every 100,000 people, there are 1,434 people who are currently infected. So that means that within your communities, within your tight-knit circles, there's probably going to be one or two people affected within that community. Our highest cases, again, belong within the states of California, Florida, Texas, and Georgia. California, over a little over 500,000. Florida approaching 500,000. Texas approaching 4 million. I'm sorry, 450,000. And New York City is holding at about 227,000, so 250,000. And then Georgia is approaching 200,000. Now, last week I started doing the lowest cases because I think that we so often focus on the negative. I'd like to look at the positive too, because there are some states and some territories that are doing the right thing. So let's give them some applaud. If we're gonna, lambast these states that are, growing in numbers, then let's applaud those states that are actually doing relatively well in comparison. So Maine currently has 3,975 cases of COVID-19. Alaska, 3,341 cases. Wyoming, 2,848. Vermont, which is the lowest of all states, is 1,426. Amongst the U.S. territories, Guam has 375 cases. Northern Mariner Islands, 46. And America Samoa has 0. Woohoo! All right, America Samoa, 0 cases. Way to go. Last fact, ladies and gentlemen, 7-day average amongst your 3 top states, Florida, California, and Texas, and actually that should be sequentially California, Florida, Texas, you have from 54,331 up to 58,728 cases daily. So we need to do better. California, Florida, and Texas, folks, mask up. Please wear a mask. Please do anything that you can to protect yourself. Florida, blessings. I know you just had your hurricane. I want to say ISIS. No need of me lying. I forgot the name of the hurricane, but just wash through your state. So be safe down there. Texas, Houston, that area. I know you had a hurricane last week. Please be safe out there. Now, we're back on Trump. So Trump, I would say, is the least presidential president, arguably, ever, right? He is arguably the worst president that we've ever had. And that is saying something because we've had some bad presidential candidates. So we want to make sure that we do something to get him out. Now, back to the interview. In addition to dismissing the lives lost to COVID by saying it is what it is, that kind of dismissive tone, like we just got to accept it, people died, right? Trump justified in this same interview, he justified or explained why he did not attend Congressman John Lewis's funeral. However, Swan was pretty crafty in the way he did it, which was really interesting to me. Swan asked Trump, where do you think you will see, or where do you think history will place John Lewis? Where do you think history will place John Lewis? Trump said, I don't know. I don't know. He said, well, how do you think history will remember Lewis? Again, Trump. I don't know. I really don't know. I never met John Lewis. I don't believe. Right? So, in essence, I'm going to turn it because he did say, I never met John Lewis. I don't believe. However, I don't believe I've ever met John Lewis, is what he was saying, right? Okay. All right. It's possible that you did not meet one of the foremost representatives of the House who'd only been there like 30 plus years. You never met him. You never met the civil rights icon. You never met this wonderful advocate for people, not just Black people, but all people, for humanity. You've never met him. Now, let's be fair. John Lewis was not a fan of Donald Trump, so it quite possibly could be true that they never met. Could be, right? I can't say that. Instead, I'm gonna stick to my script and pretty much follow that thought. So, Mr. President, you don't know how well history will remember John Lewis. Really? You really don't know. Here's a hint. He's the antithesis. He is the exact opposite to you. So, if history is going to remember you poorly, if history is going to caricaturize, thank you, Raquel. If history is going to caricaturize your governance, your time in presidential office, trust me, they're just going to be building off of what you've already done. You've already made a mockery of not only the United States, but of yourself and of the Trump family, right? It is why Mary Trump had to write a book to urge and persuade the American people to get you out of there, right? It is why all of your past respected cabinet members not only left, but took personal pains to come out against you, right? They went against their ethical standards, their professional standards, their professional beliefs, and they spoke out against an American president. Why would they do that? You reckon it's because of you? You reckon it's because they don't see you as well as they probably see John Lewis? Because they understand that if it's okay for me and you to disagree, we don't have to have the same position. We don't even have to like the same colors. We don't have to have any similarities at all outside of being human beings, right? That could be our only similarity. And yet we could still find a way to walk together, to achieve a goal together. And I think that that's what you've missed as American president, because for some reason you internalized it and you made it all about you. So I'm not a clinician. I don't even play one on TV, guys. But Trump is a narcissist and he displays narcissistic behavior. Trump's entire demeanor is about him. Everything he does is about him. Case in point. All right. Let me slow down because I'm too eager. So here's the case in point, guys. This is what Trump remembers about Lewis. He did not come to my inauguration. He didn't come to my State of the Union speeches, and that's okay. He shouldn't have to come. That's his right. But he should have come. And I think he made a big mistake. What? He made a big mistake? Okay. Now, you guys, I've already said it a few times, but this is Kelz Key. Kelz Key here on KCBZ radio. Key is a reference to my mind, right? Because your mind is the key. Your mind, your brain is it's everything. It's your functioning pattern. It's your thought pattern. It's your process pattern. It's why you walk. It's how you see. It's like the control room. It's the key, right? Whew. But the minute I heard Trump, my key froze. You ever try to stick a key in the door and it won't twist, the knob won't twist, the latch won't release? You know why? It's the wrong key. It's the wrong key. And your mind can't figure it out because maybe you're tired. Maybe you just got off of work and you're like, whatever. Maybe something traumatic happened. Maybe something happy happened. And something good happened and you were just in a fog because you're in this state of joy. So you're trying to force this key in. Yeah. It doesn't work, does it? Nope. Doesn't work. Well, isn't that what Trump is? Every time we have to listen to Trump and he says something absurd, like he didn't show up to my inauguration. He didn't show up to any of my speeches. He didn't show up to anything that I did or supported me in any way. Me. The operative word is me. Like, that's a brain freeze. That's a mind melt. That's a what? Do you mean to tell me that you elected to send a perfunctory tweet out to John Lewis's family? A perfunctory tweet acknowledging his death, to fly the flags that have mass for what? 2 or 3 hours, right? Half a day maybe. But you did that not because it was sincere and in your heart. You did it because it was a show of goodwill and because you didn't need people coming down on you and you didn't want one more thing to expose you. So that is why you chose to honor Lewis with the tweet and with the half-staff flags, right? That's why you did that. Half-mast flags. That's why you did that. Really? Really? Yeah. You see, the key is not fitting. Now, I understand it. I understand the political game of it all. I understand the nuances, sure. But come on now. Come on. Ladies and gentlemen, can't you see that his key is broke? I don't know anywhere else to say that. The key is broke. His key is broke. And his key is threatening to break all of our keys, if not kill them off. Remember, it is what it is. He is threatening to do that. Now, let me just say one more time what Trump said. Trump said, well, where is it? He did not come to my inauguration. He didn't come to my State of the Union speeches, and that's okay. He should have come. I think that was a big mistake. I was so perplexed by that statement that I had to go do a little bit of research because I knew that this was on my mind for today. So I went back and I researched when this interview with Swan was actually done. When did he actually do this interview? Well, turns out he actually did the interview while John Lewis's body was lying in state in the Capitol Rotunda. So while this man was downstairs or maybe around the corner or down the street from the White House, okay, let me tell the truth, right? So down the street, you decided that he just wasn't worth it because He didn't show up for me. Now, as petty as that seems, as petty and as real as that is, I'm not surprised because it's Trump and he is who he is, right? And also because, ladies and gentlemen, people in general are prone to such pettiness. I'm not going to her party because she didn't come to mine. I'm not going to show up at his event because he didn't show up at mine. I'm not going to support him. He didn't support me. Yeah, it happens all the time. Again, but these are lay people, average everyday people like you and I, not heads of state, not the head of state, right? You don't dismiss another colleague because he hurt your feelings. I mean, that's logic to me. But apparently, not to Trump. Because had Trump even thought about it even slightly differently, here's what he would have realized. That the presentation that his showing at Lewis's funeral, that his whether he meant it or not, his show of goodwill towards his family, sending some flowers, I don't know, whatever it is, would have had more political play, would have been a stronger political gesture, than just saying what? We mourn the passing of a great, or we mourn the passing of Representative John Lewis. Melania and I send our condolences to the Lewis family. Right? Maybe he would have done better politically, but pride comes just before the fall. Yeah, I'm quoting somebody there. I'm not even sure who, but that's a good quote. Comes just before the fall. And so that's something for us to think about. This petty man, this man who would rather knowingly support the Aryan Nation, KKK, the white brotherhood, white superiority or supremacy, if you will. He would knowingly, willingly support them because all bets are they'll support him in what? The upcoming presidential election. Problem with that is, ladies and gentlemen, is that that's not going to work. And the reason that's not going to work is because no matter how many of Trump's folks vote for Trump, there are way many more of us. I'd like to think, again, this is me being optimistic, I'd like to think there are way many more of us than him and them that can see through the veil, if you will. We can see through Trump's political veil. We can see through his mindset. We can see through his weakness, which he masks as a strength. We can see through the insecurities. We understand how feelings matter to him, how emotions matter, how people see him matters. We can understand that, right? And it's those things are fine. They're human, but they don't make you a great leader. They certainly don't make you a great leader in the United States. They certainly don't make you a great leader in the time of Corona, right? Where we have people dying. They don't make you an electable candidate. They don't. And so the message and why I'm spending so much time on this is because, as I've said a few times, there are 90 days left before we have to cast a vote. And there's specifically 90 days, 3 hours and 8 minutes and 47, 46, 45 seconds before we can vote. Now, for some of you, you may be voting online, I wish online, but you may be voting by mail. For some of you, you may be quick to get your vote out there. Please do so. Because if it's up to Trump, there's now going to be something wrong with the U.S. Postal Service, as he's just appointed the new master guard or post guard for the United States Post Office. And excuse me, because I don't know the official title, but this gentleman is an avid Trump supporter. Imagine that. You see, so if Trump can't legally stop the election, he can do everything in his power to ensure that there will be some kind of chicanery going on. There will be some kind of trickery. There will be some kind of nonsense. But if more of us vote, if we just protest loudly, if we make good noise, good trouble, in the words of John Lewis, if we make some good trouble, girls and boys, let me say it like that. If we make some good trouble, guess what? If we get out there and vote, if we get out there and exercise our power, then we can get rid of this perfunctory president, this person who doesn't even read, who doesn't listen to his staff, who for the first time today and since April actually sat in a coronavirus meeting with the coronavirus crew. I'm going to call them the crew. Fauci, Pence, et al., Burt, right? Who Trump also got on this week. He tweeted negatively about for the first time because, according to Trump, she fell for Nancy Pelosi's bait, which she should have. You just spent 40 years of your life giving your life over to science and medicine to allow this man inside of 6 months to almost ruin your career and your reputation. You went from being well respected and well regarded in the medicine and science community to being someone whose actions are being questioned, whose ideas are being questioned, who finally responded to the verbiage when Pelosi called her out. So yeah, Trump's circle is falling and he knows it. But we need to keep the pressure on him and we need to let it fall, right? We need to make sure, ladies and gentlemen, that Trump does not win. There's an old quote that I want to say. So the first one is, I want to tell Joe Biden, please, just kind of rest easy. Don't take it for granted. Continue to do all of your rallies and continue to seek out voters and continue to do everything that you have to do in the upcoming weeks at the Democratic National Convention, but also afterwards. Push, but be careful not to make any mistakes. This is yours to lose. Honestly, it's yours to lose. You cannot allow Trump to win. And we just have to keep pushing, because if we don't, it's going to be a mess. Now, the quote that I want to not necessarily end on, because I don't think I'm over, but the quote that I want to leave with Trump is this one. "'Tis better to sit in silence and let the world think you're a fool than to open your mouth and prove them right. 'Tis better to let the world think you're a fool than to open your mouth and prove them right." Now that quote is, I learned it, was attributed to Mark Twain. However, since then, there's been some questions about who actually said it. And it's a rough paraphrase. It's not the exact quote, it's a rough paraphrase, but it's something that's always stuck with me, that sometimes we have to think before we speak and understand that if that's not our lane, if that's not where we flow, that we shouldn't say anything. So for me, that means I'm probably not going to talk about WWF or the XFL that The Rock and his ex-wife just bought, Danny Garcia. I'm not going to talk about that because that's not my lane. I'm not going to talk about boxing because that's not my lane. But I can talk about football. I can talk about baseball. I can talk about basketball. Baseball should shut it down. Come on, man. What, 13 of St. Louis's players just tested positive? Just let it go. You can start again in 2021. But your players, you're losing, you're almost sounding like Trump. Baseball community with your actions, they're almost like Trump. You didn't want to play in a bubble. You wanted everybody to be free and do what they wanted to do. So now Your teams are paying for it. Your players on your teams are paying for it. And please don't say it is what it is, because the money is not that important. You will make it again in the following seasons, because trust me, people are missing the sport. So absence makes the heart grow fonder. How about using that particular quote to pick yourselves up? Okay, but shut that down. Yeah, I'm gonna say that. Shut that down. Now, our mission, guys, is to vote. We want to make, as I said, good trouble. Consider this your duty. Consider this your power. Consider this your right. Use your right and use your voice. Vote. Persuade friends to vote. Use a bandwagon appeal. Girl, let's vote. Everybody is voting, so let's go do it. Or come on, brothers, let's get out here and vote. Stand in this line. Look at all these people voting with me. Let's do it, right? Let's do it. So make sure that we remember that. You have 90 days, 3 hours, and about 56 seconds to actually vote. Less time if you're doing it by mail. Now, before I end this thing, let me leave it with my favorite quote, well, my favorite saying now for COVID. COVID kills. So wash up, clean up, mask up, stay sanitized, ladies and gentlemen, and stay healthy. Stay sanitized and stay healthy, and put a mask on it. Next week, we will be looking at the police, and I got a lot to say about the police. So let's talk next week. Until then, I want everybody to have a blessed week, a safe week. I want everybody to have a prosperous week and stay COVID free. This is your girl Kelz, Key, KCBZ Radio, and we are on every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Have a good night, ladies and gentlemen, and I am out. Eric.